Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Waq. Today is July 7th, and today's episode is going to cover an official timeline for Saturn 1 from the Rocket Pool team. We're going to be talking about using rETH in DeFi. On top of that, we're going to be talking about a whole lot of Ethereum stuff, including Robinhood, building on Ethereum, and more ETH strategy companies coming online, and a whole lot more. It's going to be a huge episode today. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so as always, we start with Rocket Pool news, and here we have a post from Langas, and Langas is saying that he's posted an update on the Saturn 1 timeline on the DAO forum, and it includes details on the devnets, audit timelines, the projected path to mainnet. It says release one of the most significant upgrades that Rocket Pool has undertaken. We're incredibly grateful for the community's continued support and involvement, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, feedback, or concerns. So, of course, Saturn 1 is basically Rocket Pool going from the old Rocket Pool to a new Rocket Pool, almost like Rocket Pool 2.0. It's happening in a couple of stages, obviously with Saturn 1 and then Saturn 2 coming after that. And this is a post about Saturn 1, which was expected at some point in August, but that of course has changed with the delays to the devnets and a whole lot of other things. So Langas says that this is the devnet 3 is going to come out this week. And DevNet 3 is going to have testing for megapools, staking, unstaking RPL, dissolving proofs, and then prioritizing rETH withdrawal buffer, node distributor, user fund unbundling, RPL staking rework, protocol upgrade guardrails, and balance submission guardrails as well. So they're saying this is a good opportunity for people to jump into testing, and there's going to be a lot of, almost all of Saturn 1's functionality, excluding the rewards tree. For those who took part in DevNet 2, please note that this is completely fresh testnet, so re-registration is required, and you can download the DevNet 1.17.0 release to get ready. And they will appreciate feedback if you have any. So the audits, they are confirmed, the 3 audit partners. So this is Sigma Prime, who Rocket Pool have worked with since the beginning, Bailsec, who we kind of got that little bit of a tease from, covered in Rocket Fuel recently, and then Spearbit and Cantina, and it says that we're confident in their experience and thoroughness. That's really cool. And then, of course, the thing that you really want is the timeline. So with the audit windows confirmed, the rough timeline for mainnet is here. So DevNet 4 is scheduled to go out in 2 weeks' time, and the audits will begin next week, starting July 14th. So testing and auditing will be happening at the same time, and the audit work is expected to wrap up in early October, and then they'll deploy the testnet and release the audit reports. The ODAO governance vote will commence in mid-October, and mainnet is currently targeted for October 29th, which is really, really exciting. So it says the audit process is extensive, the scale of Saturn is huge, impacts every part of Rocket Pool. Audits are expected to take 6 to 8 weeks. We explored several ways to optimize audits and shorten the timeline, but the nature of thorough auditing meant it simply wasn't feasible. It says Saturn has been a massive undertaking for both the team and the community. Incredibly excited about the capabilities it unlocks and strong future it sets up for Rocket Pool. Let us know if you have any questions. So this, of course, is Saturn 1, then there's Saturn 2 coming. Saturn 2 was supposed to be at the end of the year. So if we take this idea of, 2-month delay, maybe 3-month delay, then we should be getting Saturn 2 at some point around February, potentially. That, of course, is complete speculation from my part, but at least now we have some firm dates for Saturn 1 going to mainnet. So this is very, very exciting. Okay, let's talk about using your rETH in DeFi. So stakerocketpool.eth has a bi-weekly update about using your rETH in DeFi, and there's some amazing yield opportunities as always. So if you are on mainnet, if you're on L2s, you can get up to 10% on Uniswap on OP, and there's a bunch of other yields kind of in the 2% range. If you're sticking with mainnet, you can get some balancer yields at around 3.5%. That, of course, is on top of your holding rETH supplies as well. So for that balancer, it's ETH, wrapped ETH, so 3.4%, and that's a half ETH, half wrapped ETH pool, of course. So you'll be gaining some money on half of the rETH as well. And if you just want to hold rETH, then you are getting around 2.5% APY right now. So yeah, this is really cool. Use your rETH in DeFi, make money. And there's other opportunities as well that aren't mentioned here. There's There's like opportunities for looping and for other things as well. But yeah, rETH, use it in DeFi, it's used everywhere. Okay, so we have the IMC elections going on right now, and Val here put together a list of nominees. So these were people who were nominated who didn't withdraw. So that was Destroyer, Val, Samus, Dukey, Dr. Worm, Halululo, Scuzzle, Ken, Kevster, Ramana, and Lenov Tower. So a few of these were GMC members who were kind of added at the last minute just to kind of make up the numbers a little bit. Val made let people know that they've got to put out their statements, identity statements, but then people like Lenov Tower kind of withdrew from that. But Destroyer put out their alignment statement, and Kevster removed himself from the vote. Samus put out his statement. Ramana removed himself from the vote. Val put out his statement, and then Ken, Dukey, Scuzzle, Halululo, myself, Dr. Worm did that as well. So Val says this is now closed. You can read all the contributor statements by following the link below. And he says the active pool is the following 9 nominees. So that's Destroyer, Samus, Valdorf, Ken, Dukey, Scuzzle, Halululo, Waq, and Dr. Worm. So yeah, that's a nice list of nominees. However, with there only being 9 nominees, Val set up this thread to kind of like ask people's opinions about things. So he says we need a full IMC is 9 people, and we've got a pool of 9 people. So in order to help inform your choices, you can go and look at the nomination thread. There's some metrics that you can look at for how people have been active in the past. You can ask nominee questions. You can do that in this thread. It says we're now ready to have the vote go up. That said, he said, I think we should temp check the size of the committee and discuss that as needed before we move to the vote. So he says for full voting process, see the RPIP 10, and vacancies that occur get filled down the list from previous selections. The main impact here is that it may still be worth giving vote power to folks you consider capable, even if they don't make the top 9. So here they said, what size should the IMC be going forwards? So it says folks have seemed open to the idea of smaller IMC. At 9 members, we have no backups on deck, so no real vote. Picking up 9 of top 9 is pretty clear. He said, I would suggest 7, that 7 can function. I have a weaker opinion on whether we should operate a 4 or 5 votes. RPIP allows for either. He said, I would suggest either going for 4 or 5 with some willingness to go back to 4 if signing promptly is a big challenge. He says, please select all the choices that would be good. And actually, let's see this, that would be good as well. So I voted for a 4 out of 7 multisig being okay, and a 5 out of 7 multisig being okay, and 5 out of 9 multisig people seem to think that's okay as well. But it seems like the majority of people responding to this are saying a 4 out of 7 multisig is fine. And there'd been 15 voters, so that's pretty cool. Now it looks like then the IMC will only be 7 members instead of 9 members, which I think should be fine as well. And then there's supplementary data if you want to have a look at that information. You can gather that info. So yeah, it looks like it will be going to vote soon. If you want to ask any of the members specific questions, you're welcome to do so in this thread that is linked below. Okay, so last week we had Rocket Pool's reward night, and this rewards night was sad because it actually marked the lowest price that RPL has been on the rewards night, and that is 0.002 RPL ETH. Of course, we've gone below that number on occasion in regular trading, like during the month, but on the snapshot period, this is the lowest one we've had so far. I had really hoped that we'd seen the lowest one so far, that was in the rearview mirror, but sadly that wasn't to be, and we got this other lower one here. So yeah, if you are staking with your RPL, that's great. But this of course impacts your rewards and what your collateral percentage is at. Hopefully this will be the bottom, but you never know with crypto, but we can live in hope. And then the reward snapshot was published. It went through quite smoothly, as far as I know, and it was done by 4:50 a.m. So it took less than 3 hours for that to go through, and yeah, it was quite straightforward. So that's not too bad. Okay, talking about the rewards night, Patches is working on version 11 of the rewards tree. So this will be Saturn compatible tree gen version 11. So he says that he's looking for feedback on the proposed process, not the RPIP idiosyncrasies. Version 11 will extend the smoothing pool to handle protocol wide a universal adjustable revenue split. This will also finally remove the 32 slot deadline for attestation inclusion. And then there's a thread basically where you can go and have a look at that information. There's some messages in the thread already. Noshua was kind enough to take a screenshot of the GitHub page that shows the information, and it's got things like mega pool stuff, reward submissions, Merkle tree IDs, and snapshot protocol share stuff, and there'll be other changes as well, attestation inclusion stuff, how nodes, about smoothing pool stuff, and a whole lot more as well. So if you're interested in the details of that, there is a discussion thread that you can join. At the moment, it looks like it's just Patches and Noshua and myself in there, but I'm sure other people will join in there soon. Okay, so I talked about this in my previous episode. No, actually, I didn't mention this. I mentioned in previous episodes that this vote was upcoming, but this vote is now active. So the vote to remove Gitcoin from the ODAO is active. If we actually go have a look at the ODAO page, you can see that people have been voting on this, and we currently actually stand at 3 votes for removing Gitcoin from the ODAO and 0 votes against this. It looks like people have been a little bit slow in voting for this. So Gitcoin voted for themselves to be removed. Gitcoin voted for themselves to be removed, and the rocket scientists voted as well. So those are the 3 votes, along with Nimbus being the 3rd one. And then we haven't had the team or others vote on this yet. So that's going to be something to look forward to. But it looks like there's not been a vote on this for the last few days. So maybe people who are in the ODAO thread can kind of give people a little bit of a kick to get that vote going. Okay, next we have a couple of treasury reports, and this is from the pDAO. So Vaca provided this, and it says that pDAO received 5,512 RPL from inflation. The balance for the pDAO now is 97,187 RPL, which is nearly 100,000 RPL, which is nice. The IMC claimed their 3rd of 5 recurring payments, so that's 11,000 RPL went there. And the GMC claimed its 2nd of 9 payments, that's 5,574 RPL. And they balance it at negative 123 RPL and negative 145 RPL respectively, but this will be zeroed out at the last payment because of the way the inflation works. That looks all good. And then we also had a GMC treasury report. So Schifrin here, this was from the 1st of June to the 30th of June, showing that the funds at the start of the month were 35,118, inflows were 5,586, payments were 8,031, and the funds at the end were 32,661. So it says, in addition to regular grants, the GMC paid the 2nd portion of the support bounty, a small retroactive payment to Tighty.eth, and LLC expense compensation for 3 GMC members. And so now the Treasury is more stable position. The committee will soon vote on the proposal outlining new stablecoin diversification. If the proposal passes during each monthly payment cycle, the GMC will calculate the difference between the USD value of its income and the total USD value of payments to awardees that month. If there is a positive difference, the GMC will swap the surplus amount of RPL into BOLD. That's the stablecoin from Liquidity. For example, if the GMC receives $30,000 worth of RPL and pays out $25,000 to awardees, it will swap $5,000 worth of RPL into BOLD. And there's a discussion that you can follow along with the GMC thread there. So that's a nice little update from Schifrin as well. And you'll be getting more of those updates, I think, next month. And then talking about GMC, here the GMC had an internal discussion about what we want our funding priorities to be for the next period. And then background, it says, Schifrin says, past discussions, the idea of creating a formal budget for the GMC generated mixed feedback. Many members supported the idea of clarifying priorities, but there were strong concerns about rigidity, added administrative burden, and the challenges of managing a volatile asset. It says, to address these concerns, the committee agreed to experiment with lightweight, flexible approach to surface collect active priorities. This informal committee poll is designed to guide grant discussions and help ensure the high impact areas receive appropriate attention without imposing hard limits or strict funding allocations. So how it works, each member could list any number of categories they believed deserved funding priority this coming quarter. Each category listed was given equal weight. This was not a ranked choice system. So 8 members said marketing, 6 said development, 4 said research, 3 said governance, 1 said public goods, and 1 said support. So like, leading into Saturn 1, the GMC understands the need for marketing, and then marketing received the strongest support, highlighting the community's focus on accelerating rETH adoption and expanding Rocket Pool's visibility. Development, major priority, reinforcing the importance of ongoing protocol developments. Research, governance, moderate support, and public goods and support were low priorities this quarter. So this is non-binding and purely advisory. The goal is to provide context for Q3 grant and funding discussions. So that's a nice update from Schifrin there. And it looks like the GMC is taking seriously the need for marketing before Saturn 1 and getting rETH going as much as possible. Okay, let's go back to the Discord. And here we had Patches actually have a really interesting discussion about holding and staking RPL, but staking RPL and how that might change with Saturn. Patches is thinking about Reward Tree version 11. So he says, do we think the people who dumped their RPL are aware of the fact that some of their commission is going to be used to pay the people who didn't dump their RPL? He said, I feel like the subtle difference between boosted commission and fixed Saturn 1 commission is probably lost on people. Maybe they'll just keep their mini pools since the queue is going to be full until 2027. So Nosha says, I think you're saying that people have no idea what RPL is used for in Saturn 1. If that's the case, I don't think subtlety is a problem, but communication. And Patches says, I think it's more like people have no idea that by not staking RPL, the difference between 9% commission and 14% commission is that protocol charges rETH users goes to people who do stake RPL instead of just not being charged to the rETH side. Because up until now, we've had an aggregated commission, but I do agree there's a problem. One way or another is communication. So yeah, in Saturn 1, of course, if you guys have been following along with Rocket Fuel, you know that the inflation that is the price taken from our ETH holders, the commission, will be the same. Now it'll just be going to people who stake their RPL in as a bigger percentage, and of course that can be adjusted. So that's an interesting idea. You can follow this discussion by following the link below and asking Patches what his thoughts are if you want. Okay, with some sad news to finish off the Rocket Pool section today, and this is a post from Ramana earlier on last week saying that my marriage with Waq is officially over as of today, and that was the first non-whale marriage in the Rocket Pool community. There were a few whale marriages where people with large amounts of ETH and people with large amounts of RPL kind of set up these contracts, splitter contracts, to get married and use those, and mine and Ramana's was the first that was for normal people basically, and we were married I think for nearly 2 years, which was a really good run. We peaked I think around 15 validators on our marriage node, and sadly what happened is that over time that got reduced down, and then we had one validator running, and that actually went down just a few days ago. So yeah, it's a nice. It was a very hopeful marriage. I think at the time both Ramana and I thought that really, really good things were ahead for Rocket Pool, and we were totally happy to have our crypto locked up and Ramana to be earning some some RPL rewards, and me to have some of my RPL effective, which was not effective at the time. It was just sat in my wallet. It was a really hopeful time, I think, going into this marriage, and we thought really, really good things were ahead. So it's a shame that marriage is over, but now, with Saturn 1, even with Saturn 0, the relationship between staking RPL has changed, and the idea of marriages, I think, might not exist as much because people who can stake with their ETH only. So yeah, they have the option. Whereas staking with RPL was a necessity before. and that obviously isn't the case anymore. So yeah, it's kind of bittersweet. I've been trying to focus on the positives, like the hope and the high expectations we had going into it. As a marriage, it was perfectly successful. Like the contracts worked. I put my RPL in, and I want to put his ETH in, put their ETH in, and they were able to get the ETH back, and I was able to get my RPL back. So everything worked the way it was supposed to. Thankfully, there weren't any of those kind of problems. But yeah, that's over now. So yeah, sad times. Okay, let's move on to some staking news now. And the main staking news of the day is execution clients. And we have execution clients moving up to 45 million default gas. So here, Bisu gas limit raised to 45 million. In my previous episode, we talked about Nethermind and Geth both doing that as well. And there being some bugs. So here, Nethermind released update 1.32.1, but then that also quickly went to 1.32.2. And basically had Linux and CPU compatibility issues for some people with those versions. So they are now at 45 million gas as well. And then Geth here had a patch release because of some issues with 1.16.0. So this is 1.16.1. And they've got a couple of things here as well. But this also has a default gas limit of 45 million as well, which is really cool. And then Teku, well, of course, they're a consensus client, but they have got this version out 25.6.0. Said this release introduces regression on validator clients using a Sentry configuration, a rollback to 25.5.0 if you are affected. Now, one quick reminder about this Bisu update. If you are Bisu and if you want to use the new version to get this, you need to resync your database, as far as I know, but there'll be information about that in the next smart node if you use smart node for that. Okay, we have an update from NodeSet, and NodeSet have increased their validator count to 20. So if you are a NodeSet node operator using their Stakewise pool, then you will now have access to 20 validators running on there, which is actually really nice. So I'm up to date on my the NodeSet duties. So on my Stakewise vault, I am running 20 validators as well. But yeah, 20 validators, nice. I think that number's just going to go up only for a while, which is really exciting to see. Okay, and final staking news of the day, we have this update from Lido, and their dual governance system has been approved. So LDO holders have approved dual governance, a dynamic time lock system giving ST ETH holders a say in the governance of Lido DAO. Here's what happens next. So Lido was a single governance system where people who held the LDO token were able to stake, and that was, they were able to vote in governance, and that was fine. But there were some worries about quorum and concentration of LDO tokens in certain people's hands, which meant that they could technically pass scary governance stuff. Of course, the risk of that was not high, as Lido people always told us, but it wasn't zero as well. Now they've been working on this dual governance system for 3 years, and it's a way of like a checks and balances system. So the LDO voters will vote through with a governance proposal, and then the ST ETH holders, I think, have the ability to veto, basically. So it says for LDO DAO voting has different phases. So there's a forum discussion followed by off-chain and on-chain voting, and dual governance now introduces a new phase at the end where ST ETH holders can oppose LDO decisions. And then the dual governance actually will be the first proposal to go through this new phase before it's fully rolled out on chain on July 4th. So I guess that happened a few days ago, but yeah, this is a big deal to help Ethereum actually. And there's still some question marks about the dual governance system with, how many people would actually be incentivized to vote as ST ETH holders. Voting in DAO is notoriously low participation. And especially when crypto markets are down, the interest is so low that it's really difficult to reach quorum. But with this being a veto as well, it could be that things could still get through, even with that balance being there, with the checks and balances being there. But yeah, this is a big step. The fear of the Lido DAO going rogue have been assuaged a little bit. So STETH has gotten a little bit better because of this. So huge kudos goes out to Lido. Like I said, this has been a work in progress for quite a long time, and now it's all on chain. So good stuff. Okay, let's move on to some Ethereum news now. And Ethereum news is where everything is popping. Huge things are happening. So it started last week with Robinhood saying that Vitalik's in town and he's going to be joining the Robinhood team at Cannes, which is where ETHCC was happening as well. And they were going to be talking to Vitalik on stage. So, Robinhood making a big announcement and having Vitalik there as well. People are just like, hey, what are Robinhood doing? Is it something with Ethereum? They were having a discussion a while ago about potentially building on Solana or building on Ethereum. And now they're making an announcement at ETHCC. That's a pretty big deal with Vitalik there as well. Solarpunk here said Robinhood and Vlad are doing their biggest crypto announcement this year tomorrow. An hour after that announcement, Vitalik is going to be doing a fireside chat with them. Robinhood ETH L2 on Arbitrum confirmed, and Arbitrum caught a bid. So that was the idea. Like, people were starting saying that this was them going to be announcing building on Ethereum. And here, Vlad then had their discussion. They announced a whole bunch of things like perp trading in the EU. They announced staking coming back to a bunch of tokens for Robinhood crypto holders. And they also announced that they are going to be digitizing stocks and making those available to people in the EU for now. It's going to happen in 3 phases, with the first phase, most of it happening off-chain, with you having a digital receipt on-chain, and that'll be happening on Arbitrum mainnet. And then after that, it'll happen that you get more and more control over the tokens you'll have, and then eventually they'll be launching an L2 Robinhood chain on Ethereum layer 2, building on the Arbitrum stack. So here Vlad says, introducing the Robinhood chain, the first Ethereum L2 optimized for real world assets via Arbitrum, from public to private to global. You shouldn't have to rely on a broker to trade assets. Instead, you should be able to seamlessly trade real world assets in seconds. It says, we're working with regulators to make this reality. More information is coming soon. So this was really huge. People here, Stephen from the Arbitrum team, co-founder, said Robinhood is going all in on crypto and is powered by Arbitrum. Today's news is a massive moment for Arbitrum, massive moment for Ethereum, massive moment for crypto, and here's why it matters. So just talking about how all of the basically TradFi stuff is going to come on chain and how it's going to be on Ethereum. Vivek said, congratulations, you're a legend. Thanks for moving Arbitrum and Ethereum light years forward. So this was, everyone was saying this is a really big deal, which of course it is. Gabriel is a lawyer, works with MetaLex, and talking about how it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of stocks they offer, because right now they're offering stocks for SpaceX and OpenAI, and these companies are not publicly trading right now. So OpenAI is saying that these tokens from Robinhood are not OpenAI equity. They didn't partner with Robinhood. They're not involved in this and do not endorse it. So Gabriel here has a take saying, every emerging company's lawyer is likely rethinking the term transfer in bylaws and stock grants and expanding it to prohibit affiliates, etc., holding the stock as a hedge while issuing mirror securities. He says, I'd be surprised if there aren't lawsuits out of all this. So basically what's happened is, either Robinhood have, private equity shares that they bought, in one of the raise rounds, and they are basically turning their allocation into securities to be traded, which is curious. Or they partnered with someone who has received some equity in one of the raise rounds, and they are trading those. So definitely approach this with caution, but it's definitely opening up markets in a way that you've never been able to see before. And this would, like Gabriel here says, is something that would probably be frowned upon in TradFi. Well, crypto kind of enables it. So yay. Okay, and then here Kyoto actually had an interesting take, saying that it looked like, a while ago, Robinhood were going to be building on Solana, so he really wants to know what happened behind the scenes to get them to build on Arbitrum instead. And he says not many know the challenges of the Arbitrum team are faced to pull this off. I'm familiar with the timeline, but it's still a bit of a guessing game where the deal is at any given moment. So it's just 2 months ago, Robinhood planned to build on Solana as their main platform with no intermediate plans for Ethereum. They were set to launch everything on Solana, tokenized equity, native crypto trading, Bitstamp integration, perhaps the whole deal. They had to do the whole integration to make today's announcement happen. So this was an amazing job from the Arbitrum team to get them to go to Arbitrum instead of building on Solana. Now, one of the things that's an interesting quote that's come out is from Vlad, the CEO of Robinhood, saying that they don't want to be, renting. They want to be the landlord, basically. And by building on Solana, what would happen is, they'd be at risk of MEV and, that kind of stuff happening on the public blockchain, whereas with Robinhood chain, there would be the sequencer, and they would be able to mitigate a lot of the MEV stuff, which is really important for TradFi companies. So yeah, that I think it seems like that factored into it as well. So another bit of huge news here is Wall Street strategist Tom Lee is aiming to create the MicroStrategy of Ethereum. So we talked about SBET, we talked about BTCS, about those being two strategy style companies, like selling, taking debt against shares and then buying ETH. Now, Tom Lee here entered with Bitmine Immersion Technologies, who were a former Bitcoin miner, and then basically have now switched to becoming an ETH treasury company. So they secured a $250 million private placement to buy Ether. And Tom Lee actually is really interesting because he's the kind of analyst that is on, trad media pretty much like all the time. And people really respect his opinion. We're going to be talking about him a little bit. Actually, there's a Ryan Sean Adams tweet that I'm going to cover, but they got a part of their $250 million came from here. Like, this is information about what they're doing and what's going on with it. So Tom Lee is the founder of FundTrust and CEO of FundTrust Capital, become the chairman of the board of Bitmine, BMNR, and the shares, for this went really high based on this announcement. And then Pantera, there was some who collaborated with this and proud to be an anchor investor in this as well. So they're putting their money into ETH through Bitmine. And then here, Eric Connor had a take on it. He says, Tom Lee just pulled a Michael Saylor move for Ethereum. Bitmine raised $250 million to start stacking ETH and will track ETH per share. This might be the most slept on corporate pivot of 2025. So there's a thread. So basically, this company was a Bitcoin miner, and now they are going ETH basically, which is really huge. And there will be there's a whole bunch of information here, but yeah, the stock market really liked it and pushed their shares up really high. Ryan Sean Adams here had an interesting take as well. So he said that Tom is the Wall Street whisperer for crypto, and he'll propagate the ETH narrative, starting with Ethereum stablecoin FOMO and ending with ETH as a world reserve asset. So ETH is ready for this. So he actually had a really interesting take about Tom Lee in a different tweet. He's talking about how in 2017, in that period, like 2016, 2018 period, Tom would go on, CNBC and other media channels and talk about crypto and talk about Bitcoin. And Ryan Sean Adams says, when the price of Bitcoin was $2,000, Tom was one of those people who was saying that Bitcoin was going to go to $55,000. And what happened is that people laughed at him and said, your predictions are outlandish and they're crazy. And then Bitcoin went, of course, to 55,000 in 2021, but also way beyond now, sitting over 100,000 right now. So he said, back then people kind of laughed at Tom, and now he's saying that he's going all in on ETH instead. And when people laughed at him before, now they'll take him seriously because he has the credential, I guess, of sorts, making that public call. He has that out there in the public. So that is very interesting. And he could be like a secret weapon for Ethereum on Wall Street and with funds. Very, very interesting. And here there was an interview with Tom Lee talking to TBPN. and talking about how stablecoins on Ethereum are going to be like the ChatGPT moment for crypto. And right now there's 160 billion dollars worth of stable coins. More than half of all stable coins are on Ethereum and Ethereum L2s, saying that that number is currently $250 billion market cap, and Scott Besson says that's going to 2 trillion in a few years. I think it's actually going to go even higher than that. And basically that the main place that's transacted on is Ethereum. And the idea that Tom has is the companies that will be getting into stable coins, they will buy ETH with that to stake it, to make sure that everything is running well on the Ethereum blockchain. That's an interesting take that has people kind of questioning, people in crypto questioning it, but I guess it's something that kind of makes sense for people outside of crypto. So maybe people in companies are now looking to acquire ETH, which of course I'm a huge fan of them doing that. A DC investor here had a really good take as well. He says it might not look like it, but Ethereum haters are quietly panicking right now. You can read it in their desperate foot tweets flooding the timeline, talking about how Ethereum is relevant and won't accrue value, talking about multiple times per day. Why is everyone who matters choosing to build on Ethereum? I says they know what's happening next with TradFi. It'll be virtually unstoppable and unchallengeable. And once they're all in the same decentralized global settlement network, there's no turning back. This is the point of lowest risk and greatest opportunity for Ethereum. He says that he's seen ETH for years, and it seemed like other people have started paying attention to that as well. We'll come back to that in a moment. But here Vivek says that the ETH narrative for Wall Street has never been clearer. ETH upside in stablecoin growth, ETH upside in tokenization, like the Robinhood stuff, and ETH is the institutional blockchain infrastructure. So you want to be in on the infrastructure, you want to manage how all of it works. So he says this is ETH's era of outperformance, driven by secular fundamental adoption, and it's here at last. So there's a tweet thread kind of covering all of these different things, but the idea is that people love stable coins, people love tokenization. All of that's happening on Ethereum. Ethereum is digital oil. TradFi is coming. These treasury companies are coming, and these are positive catalysts. And now Ethereum has positive catalysts for all three of these, and it's just going to grow so much. And people are already seeing it being the next Bitcoin. Bitcoin, people miss their repricing. At the lows of 2022, it was around $15,000, went up above $100,000. And that BTC was a pioneer for crypto adoption, but it's not the end game. And now it's Ethereum's turn, and kind of comparing it to Nvidia, saying that ETH is kind of here where people didn't really know what Nvidia was. So in that post-merge period, GPU usage was looking like it might go down. Nvidia stocks came down a little bit around that time as well. And not that, ETH mining was one of the biggest clients, one of the biggest customers of Nvidia stock, but then no one was ready for ChatGPT and the amount of compute that would be needed, GPU compute that would be needed. And he says that's what's happening with ETH now, is that we're on the verge of this realization that Ethereum is going to be absolutely huge. So Hani Abu says buying ETH is the index fund of the whole Ethereum ecosystem. You buy ETH and you capture the upside in the world moving on chain, and the whole lot of other really, really good takes there as well that you can read. And this is actually really interesting. Just like DC Investor was saying that, TradFi, this is an asymmetrical bet. Well, here we have a new company that started, that kind of announced it today, and this is Bit Digital, and they're on NASDAQ BTBT. And they actually have done something really interesting. They've increased their ETH accumulation to 100,603 ETH, and they actually have sold all their Bitcoin holdings and swapped it into ETH, and then raised an additional $172 million to purchase more ETH. So they are going all in on this as well, literally going all in on this, and they're saying there's no second best. Now, you have to remember that the ratio of ETH to BTC right now is kind of low. Like if you look at the, and it hit the area is kind of where it was in 2018, 2019, and 2020 as well, before ETH really took off. I think a lot of people in crypto who are kind of paying attention to what's happening with Ethereum are thinking that ETH is primed for a move like in 2021. And I've been like saying it for a long time now. It's just, as I see more and more of these catalysts kind of line up for this move, I'm just wondering where the move is. But eventually, there will just be too much happening, and it'll be undeniable that this is happening right now. And people like Bit Digital here are seeing. I think they're reading the tea leaves, and they're seeing that Bitcoin mining is an unsustainable business. With every cycle, if the hash rate keeps going up, some of these major miners go out of business. And they are capitalizing on the time when BTC is high and ETH is low, and they're swapping the BTC into ETH, and they are really happy about it. And their stock market shares, went up significantly based on this, yeah, it's exciting. So here's Eric Conner again with a really interesting take. So he says all these companies now are buying ETH. And it says corporate ETH grab is going parabolic. So SBET now holds 188,000. Actually, that number is out of date. And Bit Digital just flipped to buy, flipped their BTC into ETH to buy 100,000 ETH. And Tom Lee's Bitmine is ready to buy 100,000 ETH as well. So there is a total of 388,000 ETH, whereas in the last month, there has only been 70,000 new ETH that has been minted. So if you just look at these treasuries, they are gobbling up all the ETH there is, all the ETH I can find, which is absolutely amazing. But on top of that, this is not even counting the ETFs. Like I haven't even mentioned the ETFs yet, but the ETFs have been bringing in obscene amounts of ETH recently, going into there. Just yesterday, just on the last trading day, which was July 3rd, there was $148 million worth of ETH that came into the ETFs. And before that, there was 2 million outflow, but 40 million inflow, 31 million inflow, 77 million inflow, 26 million outflow, but 60 million, 70 million, 100 million inflows. These numbers of inflows are just like so strong right now. And when you count the ETH that's going into the ETFs, when you count the ETH that's going into treasury companies, it's only a matter of time before this absolutely starts rocking the price. And I think you saw that with Bitcoin as well, where there was a period where the price was kind of like stagnant, it's kind of flat, just seeing what's happening, and then just exploded. I think we're ready for that explosion for ETH, going into this next phase of the market. And it's going to be very exciting. Yeah, and then here, with ETH strategies, we see the strategic reserves. We see that Bit Digital went from 27,000 ETH they were holding to over 100,000 ETH. So they've gone up by 264% in the last month. And then here, like I was mentioning, SBET, they actually bought more ETH. So they went from 188,000 to 198,000. So that's 10,000 ETH that they purchased, and went up by 5%. And you can see the whole of the strategic reserve here. Recently joined companies are Zentree with their 12,000 ETH, SparkDAO with nearly 700 ETH, Axie Infinity with nearly 3,000 ETH. And here you can see that, in terms of the big rises, SharpLink now, went up 12% in the ETH holdings in the last month. Bit Digital smashed it into the top 6 position with over 100,000, 264% in the last month. And a whole lot of these companies are just buying up all the ETH they can. Gitcoin increased their holdings to nearly 3,000 ETH, and then there's a whole bunch more as well. So this list is just getting longer and longer. Just a few days ago, I felt like we were saying it was 1 million ETH, and now it's 1.3 million ETH nearly. And I feel like this number is just going to go higher and higher, which is absolutely amazing to see. So huge, eyes on this, watching these numbers, because the ETH is just being gobbled up, and there's less and less ETH available on centralized exchanges and over OTC counters. And yeah, this is going to be really, really huge when things just start moving. Okay, moving on now to some Ethereum protocol stuff. And here, Marius says that the Ethereum client teams have been working on finding out what's safe for gas limits, and they are all now signaling 45 million gas. So it's just basically a matter of time now as people update their clients, and they will be they'll be moving up to 45 million gas. It says we established a new testing and benchmarking framework to de-risk future gas limit increases. Fosaka introduces repricings, which will unlock more headroom for gas limit increases. We'll be more proactive in communicating what we consider a safe gas limit going forwards. And then there's huge props to people who are working with that in the Ethereum ecosystem, which is awesome. And then here as well, ETH Panda Ops saying that they spent a week in person with core devs, shipping issues to fix, and they're now everyone's recommending 45 million gas, which we see, on the execution clients, Bisu, Nethermind, and Geth, the three biggest clients, are now all recommending 45 million gas. It hasn't quite shown up yet in the gas limit picks, where we've got around 24% of validators signaling over 45 million. I think it'll happen very quickly where, Coinbase, Lido operators, Binance, and a few other big entities, once they start saying 45 million, will be jumping up ahead of that 45 million number quite quickly. I heard rumblings of people basically saying that the core devs are going to, there's a lot talking about gas. Actually, I'll cover that in tomorrow's episode. I forgot to include it in today's episode. I must have missed it. I'll be talking about Justin Drake talking about gas limits on Ethereum for the next 5 years, going 3x up. And I'll be talking about that in tomorrow's episode. But yeah, it's really good stuff. And just as we talk about execution clients, signaling higher gas limits, here Fedi's internet is actually talking about Class Lambda building a new execution client in Ethereum. This will be the 6th client. It's based on rETH coding language. So it's going to be a minimalist rETH-based execution client. Strong technical reasons behind this, and they're already paying off. So this is going to be called Etherex. Yeah, that's going to be really, really cool. So that's going to go on top of the 3 that I just mentioned, and Aragon and rETH. So Ethereum's client diversity is absolutely amazing. And this is actually building with a team out of Argentina. So not only are we getting client diversity, but we're also getting geographical diversity as well. And there's Etherex if you are interested in following Etherex, which is really, really exciting. Okay, if you want information on the next hard forks and what's going in those, Nixo's team at the Ethereum Foundation has put together this really amazing, absolutely incredible tool called Forecast, and saying, what is a headliner, what do proposed EIPs benefit, how do we compare across them. This is my team at the Ethereum Foundation looking to make the upgrade process easier to understand and share this small tool that we'll be hacking on. And let's actually just jump into the tool. Sorry, Nick. So, but it's actually really, really awesome. So if you go to Forecast Upgrade and go to see what's coming on, like if you go to Fosaka, which is the next upgrade that's coming, you see this timeline basically. So it says this upgrade will have major improvements to Ethereum scalability and user experience. So including pDAO for enhanced data availability, named after the combination of Fulu, which is a consensus layer upgrade, named after the F-star, and then Osaka, which is where the DevCon location was. So it's a portmanteau, so for Osaka. But it says that it's scheduled at some point in Q3 of 2025, up to Q1 of 2026, but at some point within that date range. And the headline is going to be pDAO, which is going to massively increase the data availability for L2s that are writing their data to blobs. So it enables scaling up to 128 blobs per block over time. But right away, I think it's going to be 2x or 3xing the data. So this EIP is basically 7594, and what it tells you what the key benefits are, what the stakeholder impacts are. So for end users, wallet developers, layer 2s, client developers, application developers, tooling developers, stakers and node operators, and client developers execution layer. So it has all this information about how it's going to impact these different groups. And then, how does this align with the Ethereum North Star? The North Star being scale the L1, scale the L2, and improve UX. So for scaling the L1, it says this is essential foundation for scaling the Ethereum data capacity, and then scaling blobs. This directly enables blobs to be increased right there. And then it tells you the other EIPs that are going in here. It actually tells you what EIPs would decline for inclusion as well, and what that information, why they were declined, and the ones that are scheduled for inclusion. And then for Glamsterdam, like the future upgrades, it tells you what is happening here as well. And yeah, this is the headliner. There's competing headliners at the moment with EVM, EPBS, block time reduction, fork choice inclusion lists, and a whole bunch of others that are kind of competing to be the headliner. But this is absolutely wonderful tool that tells you everything you need to know about the EIP. And I think that what's happening is they're kind of working on Fosaka as the main one right now, adding information from Amsterdam. They'll be adding information for Pectra soon, and I think they might even then go further back in time and kind of fill out the previous hard forks that have happened in there. So yeah, that's absolutely awesome stuff. Really great website. I absolutely love it. And I think that, as the fork gets closer, there'll be more information here about DevNets. There'll be more information about, the testnet forks and all that kind of stuff. So amazing tool. Congratulations to Nixo's team, the Ethereum Foundation, and the people who are working on this. Awesome stuff. Okay, Ethereum Foundation is setting up Ethereum House San Francisco. So they are setting this up as a local hub for Ethereum builders, researchers, founders, and investors in San Francisco's Frontier Tower. They're excited to be supporting the Ethereum House with grant funding and collaboration from the EF team members. So if you are in San Francisco, the Ethereum House will be on the 12th floor. Now will be dedicated entirely to Ethereum, and this will be a space for meetups, co-working, even station to build your own validator, which is so cool. Other floors in the house will focus on DAC, longevity, AI, and robotics. So they're having people, key thinkers from these really cool areas will be in one building, which is really cool to see. And the official launch party is August 5th, but house is already open to community. So stop by for talks. There's going to be a UX talk with Josh Rudolph taking place on the 11th of July, and decentralized AI with David Krapis will be taking place on July 25th. So if you are in San Francisco, jump on. This is really cool to see. I wish there was something like this in my town so I could go meet up with Ethereans and maybe do research for rocket fuel there. That would be absolutely awesome. But yeah, if I was in San Francisco, I would love to hang out in a place like this all the time and just talk to cool people in Ethereum land. Okay, another update from Ethereum, and this, so the Ethereum Foundation now has Ethereum Foundation Twitter handle, and the Ethereum just at Ethereum now is just called Ethereum. It's got nothing else with that. It's really clean, and they're putting out some really cool content. I really love this kind of roll up of news. That, of course, if you're a rocket fuel watcher, most of this won't be new for you. It'll be stuff that's been covered before. But they're here 28 things in the Ethereum ecosystem got done in the last couple of weeks. So there's stuff like Shopify, Fileverse, Eigenlayer, Zora, Roman Storm stuff, Shibuya Film, Etherealize, Eigenlayer again, Ethereum Foundation, SBET, a whole bunch of others. It's just a really nice place to come and get Ethereum news that's happening. I hope they do this every week or every couple of weeks. It's just going to be really great content for people who are following the Ethereum account. That's over 3 million people, to get an update of what's happening with Ethereum and just seeing just how huge it is, and how incredible the developments that are happening, because a lot of time people just don't see this stuff, and it's absolutely awesome. Okay, I saw this heat map. I've seen things like this before, but I really love it. Everstake put out this data saying, ever wondered where Ethereum actually lives? It says the real-time heat map shows the global topology of Ethereum nodes, and it's gorgeous. And see what it tells us about Ethereum. So you can see there's 2 huge clusters in North America and in Europe, and it looks like the USA and Germany are the biggest hubs for Ethereum staking. But there's some really nice scattering of data here, where you see nodes in the Far East, in Australia, not enough in Africa sadly, and then some nice smattering of nodes across Latin America and Central America, and then in South America as well, like in Brazil and Argentina. It's really cool. Shout out to that one node in Iceland. That's Iceland calling. So huge shout out to them being that one little dot on the map in the North Atlantic there. But this is just really great data. So You can read the information from there. But when I see things like this, I'm just like, seriously, Ethereum is so fucking cool. Like literally, there are thousands of node operators around the world for Ethereum, and they've got nodes running on every continent and in space and in Antarctica. I think like there's ideas. There's just really cool stuff. Like you cannot beat this level of geographical decentralization. It's absolutely awesome to see. Oh, sorry, that's twice that it's shown up there. I got a couple of tweets from Gabriel here. I mentioned Gabriel earlier as well, but he's been putting out some really great Ethereum content. I thought I'd cover a couple of his tweets and just give him a shout out. So he says a lot of stuff currently disparagingly said about ETH maxis, similar to how BTC maxis got mocked at certain points when alts outperformed. He says, personally, I believe there are only three possibilities going forward. One, there'll be a similar last laugh effect for ETH maxis as decentralization, autonomy, and the L2 approach wins out over time. Two, ETH is fucked because people basically don't care about solving the trust problems Ethereum is focusing on in a system-based way. And three, the ETH roadmap was right, as in option one, but BTC becomes the best at it with its own L2s, and every chain except BTC and its L2s are fucked. So he says if two is right, there's two sub outcomes. It turns out crypto rails are somehow very valuable without Ethereum. So something like Solana Sui could do great and Ethereum does badly, or crypto rails are kind of pointless because the main reason for them is solving trust problems almost no one gives a fuck about, and all chains do badly for all use cases except money and store of value, where BTC will take all without an L2 approach. So he says, personally, I bet on number one, which is that Ethereum wins out and I'll have the last laugh. And other people then like were sharing this. Vivek said this is a really good and measured take. And Mer says the flaw here in thinking that one can win or have a last laugh. Many records of people saying the ETH and L2s won from 2 years ago. They do not age well. In an infinite game, there is no winning. It's only a moment of time where you could be ahead. And Gabriel says, generally agrees positive sum, but I'd be surprised if smart contract platform isn't a winner takes most game in the long run. And Tom Howard says, I'm very convinced of two, people don't care. And here, says, I see no chance of BTC becoming scalable via modular extensions. And yeah, there's some really interesting takes there. So I liked that quite a lot. There was another take here from Gabriel Shapiro as well. This is post Robinhood. Choosing to build on Ethereum L2, says the reason why Ethereum will get broad institutional adoption is because it is not max extracting. Says all the pejoratives, communist, allows parasites, Linux of crypto, too socially decentralized, can't move fast enough, etc., are why Ethereum is winning institutions. He says in the world of an abundant cheap block space, extraction on blockchains with things like MEV, REV, factors forcing use of vertically integrated cabal infrastructure, etc. He says is a race to the bottom. He said, I believe Ethereum's leaders rightly realized this early on and therefore did not prioritize ETH fundamentals. In my view, and I believe in theirs, these fundamentals are simply not sustainable. And it says that if you extract, basically, then you're extracting from someone, and TradFi don't want to be the people who get extracted from. They would rather be the people doing the extracting, as they have already done. And it says, Vlad, the CEO of Robinhood, has a fiduciary duty to deliver as much value possible to HUD token hold their shareholders, instead of getting ripped off basically down the stack from Solana stakers and searches for MEV and that kind of stuff. So this is a really great post saying that because Ethereum has tried to mitigate MEV at every turn and try to minimize it, then these people will be more willing to work on Ethereum instead of elsewhere. And here, Anthony said extremely well said, something I've been harping about for years. I'm glad that more and more people are waking up to Ethereum strategy has been, and why it's always been the winning one. So yeah, like the idea is right, like that with fees, gas fees, in the area of abundant block space, fees will trend towards zero. So you can't really rely on fees to make your revenue. And then with MEV, more and more actions. MEV is a bad user experience, right? Like if you are trying to, trade tokens and there's MEV bots like sniping off percentages of your crypto, that is a bad experience, right? And that's the kind of thing that happens when people, set high slippages. They get front run and sandwich attacked and all sorts of things. These are bad experiences, and Ethereum's been trying to solve for these issues. And by solving for these issues, it's meant that it's getting less money as income, to stakers. And node operators, but what's happening then is that it's becoming a much better experience for users, and it's only a matter of time before that wins out, basically. So yeah, Gabriel's had a few other really good takes as well, but I just wanted to give him a shout out because there's been some really good content right there. And finally, in some other news, Nate Grassi, who's also had some really nice Ethereum takes these last few days about how Ethereum is going to win. Absolutely love those. I feel like, there's really, really good stuff coming out recently. Nate here says that the Reuters confirms that SEC is working on creating a full framework for streamlining approval of crypto ETFs. So they're looking for a general rule that can apply to all listings, and currently is going back and forth on precise wording for the exchanges. And then Nate says, there's one important note is some issues don't believe this framework will be fully implemented until early fall. So it might be that there's no crypto ETF approvals until then. And then there's a link to the Reuters article. So this is a long time needed, and it's going to make some people angry that this doesn't exist in the past. But this SEC has been very, very crypto friendly going forwards, and there's been a lot there. So I've been hopping on for an hour. I know I had a lot to cover, but there's a lot of really, really, really cool things happening, and I'm so bullish Ethereum, like incredibly bullish Ethereum. But on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead, and I'll be back tomorrow with more Rocket Fuel for you all to enjoy. Bye.